Welcome back. Joining me right now is the man who first exposed the Russia collusion hoax for what it was, a lie. On this program many times throughout the years, former House Intelligence Committee Chairman and California Congressman, currently Trump Technology and Media CEO Devin Nunes. Also, Devin is serving currently as the chairman of the prestigious President's Intelligence Advisory Board. Devin, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here in person.
Well, I'm happy that you're here because you've told our audience so many times what lies this Russia collusion story was. We wanted to talk about a timeline with you. What is your reaction to Tulsi Gabbard highlighting all of this these last 2 weeks?
Well, the part that was most important that she put out is that the PDB information, the Presidential Daily Brief, that information was never given to Congress. And so, but what was given to Congress was exactly the same thing that was in that disposed of PDB that just disappeared, that never made it anywhere. But a few weeks before that, the House Intelligence Committee, we're talking about all the way back in 2016, we were given that information, Maria, that the Russians and Trump, there was nothing to see there. And there was nothing to see once they went to brief Obama, and then somebody changed that. And I think that's what Director Tulsi Gabbard was able to get out a week ago. And then, of course, after that, she was able to put out our report that had been hidden from the American people, 40-page report that Chairman of the Intelligence Committee now, Rick Crawford, put out. So, you know, transparency is key. I think listening to your earlier guests, it's important to remember that this is an ongoing conspiracy. It hasn't stopped. And the people that have hoisted this on the American people for the last nearly a decade have never paid one price, and they're continuing to do exactly the same thing that they've done for a while. Now, look, people are numb to it. At the end of the day, the American people rejected it. They overwhelmingly elected Donald Trump to be president of the United States. And the president has asked myself and all the people that he's put into these intelligence roles and these law enforcement roles, he just wants it cleaned up. He doesn't want, after all of this, after all the country's been through, what we'd like to do, and I think what the president really wants, is to clean up the FBI, clean up the Department of Justice. And part of that is having accountability for the people who perpetuated this ongoing hoax.
And as we look back on how they actually did it, because it was very effective, they actually got away with it, and they had a president, a duly elected president, on defense for 4 years. In the summer of 2016, before the election, Brennan tells everybody, Hillary Clinton is up to no good. Let's walk through the timeline of how they achieved this.
And Director Ratcliffe brought this up, and he actually found it at the end of his tenure when he was the DNI under President Trump. So what Brennan never did during that time period, is tell us. He never came to me as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee in 2016 and said what he told Obama. Through all the investigations in 17 and 18 and 19 and 20, he never said that, oh yeah, I had told Obama and these people about the Clinton, the Steele dossier and all of that.
That Clinton was coming out with a new story that Trump colluded with Russia.
Right, that happened in August of 16. He had a lot to say, but one of the things he didn't have to say was that he knew that this was a Clinton hoax. It wasn't until John Ratcliffe becomes the head of the DNI, he digs that up, he finds these handwritten notes where Brennan himself, and I'm sure if he wrote it down, he must have remembered. It's kind of an important point to remember that if one of the presidential candidates is cooking up a scheme, working with Russia and working with Russians to cook up this scheme, and then what you found out now from the report that we put out this week is also that the Russians knew about the scheme. So the only people that didn't know about the scheme were President Trump and the Republicans. You know, we're the only ones that didn't know about a lot of this, and now we're digging this up years later.
So from around August to Thanksgiving, they were putting together a plan to actually go with it and push it forward. Then President Trump wins the election in 2016, and then the Steele dossier becomes something like an Obama dossier, because President Obama decides to hide the real intelligence, which was Hillary was coming up with this scheme, and push forward fake intelligence, which was that Trump had something to do with collusion.
Yeah, and if you think about it, those two important briefings that occur after the election in 2016, one is to us, which we were briefed by the FBI and other intelligence agencies, and they said that, hey, you know, we had the normal accountability during the election. Bad countries do bad things, but there was nothing unusual, and for sure nothing between Donald Trump and the Russians. Okay, that's Thanksgiving. The PDB that Director Gabbard released last week also says, exactly, almost identical as I remember it to what we were briefed on. And then something changes on December 9th. And so there's a lot of people that were in that meeting with Obama. Many of those people, graduated. They actually graduated up. They moved on. They got higher positions within the Justice Department. And look, I think what also can't be forgotten here is in this ongoing hoax that jumps from Russia collusion to everybody forgets about. Remember the fake whistleblower on Ukraine and the impeachment? Then you move to the 51 spies who lie about the Hunter Biden laptop. But probably the biggest thing that still needs to be researched and the information needs to be put out to the American public. I'm not sure if the Justice Department is going to use it or not, but it's this. Why was there a raid at Mar-a-Lago? What led to that raid? What led to the appointment of that special counsel? What the hell were they doing at Mar-a-Lago? What were they looking for? This was an unprecedented act in U.S. history where the Department of Justice raids a former president's home. So, look, it's great that we look in the past, and I'm glad that and it's important to understand the past. But that raid on Mar-a-Lago wasn't very long ago. That was an attempt. Whatever they were looking for, whatever scheme they had cooked up, whatever they were looking for, they didn't find, clearly. But that was to try to stop President Trump from being reelected.
Unbelievable.
That's all it was. And so there's a lot more to do with that. I'm happy that the Justice Department has this strike force. And look, I'm going to, as chairman of the President's Intelligence Board, I'm going to try to get out as much of this information and get it declassified as possible.
So you believe that they raided Mar-a-Lago because they were looking for this? They were looking for the intelligence community assessment, your report on Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 presidential election. That's why they raided Mar-a-Lago?
I believe it had to be one of the things that they were looking for. Because look, that report is pretty damning if people take the time to read it. It's 45 pages. It's spent. We had a dedicated team that spent nearly 2 years down at the CIA looking through this. It was blocked from getting out. And the reason that report is so important, right? That's, let's just dumb it down, simply put. We went through every single piece of intelligence that existed. And if anything, it was clear that if Putin was going to do anything, he probably wanted Hillary Clinton to win. But in fact, if you just apply a little common sense to it, the fact was that nobody around the world thought that President Trump was going to win in 2016. Same with Vladimir Putin. He didn't either. And so when you go through that was the intelligence. Every piece of intelligence that existed we went through it. It's in that report. And what do we know? After all this, after all, Trump and Russia and collusion, the two people that didn't collude? Trump and Russia. That's what we found out. We know that Clinton colluded. We know the DNC colluded. You had John Podesta on earlier, sitting there lying on television. He cooked that whole damn thing up. He had to be part of the team that cooked that up for the Clinton campaign.
Let me get your take on this strike force. Do you think the DOJ's strike force will be able to actually give us accountability? Everything's now going to flow through the strike force, right?
Yeah, and look, and eventually, I'm assuming once they gather all this information, you broke news this morning with John Ratcliffe saying that there was additional information in the Durham report. I've never seen that. So that will be new. That'll be new information. I think once you compile that, then the strike force will have to work with real investigators, unlike the investigators, these fake investigations that have gone on. So I'm confident that between the Trump Justice Department, working with Kash Patel and Bongino over at the FBI, they'll have a real team of people that will actually look at this in its entirety, get to the bottom of it, and then at that point, there's no question, John Ratcliffe, as you know, made criminal referrals. Don't forget, I made a dozen criminal referrals as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. So, those are all sitting over there somewhere. So hopefully the conspirators will be held accountable.
I want to talk about this. I want to know who should be criminally prosecuted after all of this. We've got more with Devin Nunes, chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, right after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and I am back with the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Now, Devin Nunes is back with us. And Devin, you made several criminal referrals to the DOJ. Talk to us about specific crimes that this cabal committed.
Well, the easiest ones are lying to Congress and omitting information from Congress, which the most recent one was put out by Director Gabbard recently in this PDB, Presidential Daily Brief. None of that information was ever given to Congress. It's kind of critical information that was missed, right? That would have been critically important for our report. In addition to that, John Ratcliffe talked about conspiracy. And, conspiracy, there is no statute of limitations. And like I was saying in the last segment, I think people need to remember that all of these hoaxes that happened were done by the same people in many cases, and one led to the other. So you had Hillary starts the collusion hoax. Obama continues the collusion hoax. Mueller continues the collusion hoax. I mean, Mueller and that team of witch hunters should also be looked at everything that they did. Then when Mueller completely flames out, why? Because there was no intelligence that tied Trump to Russia. Then what happens? We get this fake whistleblower from inside the agencies that says that Trump's doing something weird with Ukraine, and so you end up with that. And then you get to the Hunter Biden laptop, and then you get to the raid at Mar-a-Lago. All of that is happening with basically the same 24 people and media operatives that are all involved in perpetuating these hoaxes. So, but the problem is you cannot destroy evidence. You cannot hide evidence from Congress. We had multiple subpoenas that went out there. I'd be surprised to see if was any information hid from John Durham. I think Durham and his team could play a role in maybe helping out this new strike force that's put together, because there's probably a lot that was hidden from them. So there's plenty of conspiring going on. Multiple laws, in my opinion, were broke. The question will be, can you build a case strong enough that a jury would convict some of these people? And that's really going to be the key.
No statute of limitation on conspiracy. 10 years of lies, attacks to stop Donald Trump. We're going to take a short break, and then I've got one final question for you, Devin Nunes. You're a hero. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm back with former House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. Devin, after 10 years of lies, how would the world or America be different had we not been faced with this corruption?
Well, you have to ask yourself, all the people at the CIA, the FBI, all the destruction that's been done there within the ranks, people that lost their jobs, people that were doing things they shouldn't have been doing. Just imagine if that focus would have been on places like China. And I also think that you have to look seriously at the massacre that's occurring between Russia and Ukraine. If you remember, this is lost on people, but Obama and his people and Hillary Clinton loved Putin. They wouldn't do a damn thing about Putin as Putin continued to cause problems all over the world. And so now you've seen, Trump loses, Putin invades, millions of people, millions of casualties here. You have to ask yourself, would this have happened had people not corrupted the intelligence and justice system?
And put politics over national security.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.